now the host of Entertainment Now, Gail Scott-Key.
In 2010, my guest founded the Power of Peace Project using the experience he gained resolving conflict in some of the most dangerous areas in the world. He's applied his principles to bringing about change in prisons, schools, courts, and faith-based communities. Hello, and thank you for tuning in. I'm Gail Scott-Key, your host on my Gail Scott-Key Entertainment Now show. This isn't entertainment per se, it's education. And Kit Cummings, he's an award-winning author, teacher, consultant, and joins me courtesy of Elite Public Image. Kit, I have to thank our dear mutual friend, Richard Mungia, for connecting us. As your story is incredible, we have a lot to cover in this half hour, so I do not want to delay because I was salivating when I saw you both on the video together. And like I said, Richard, eat your heart out. We got a little mini tour before you did.
Yes, you did.
Thank you so much for coming on my show. I'm extremely proud of you. And you were talking about something that is so prevalent. It's been going on for ages. And let me just do this, if you don't mind. First of all, violence is among the leading causes of death in the U.S. amongst the youth. Did you all hear that? Kit is going to enlighten us in this half hour. Kit, I want to turn it over to you because you're going to give us this level of education that I don't believe a lot of people are understanding, or it's maybe being pushed over to the side because we've got so much going on, goodness knows, with Ukraine war and other things that are just taking precedence as they should be. But you have been in over 100 prisons, jails. You have unified a lot of these gang members together in ways that so many have fallen short. You've also been recognized through, believe it or not, everybody who I share this story with. You're a recipient of the prestigious Martin Luther King Jr. Living the Dream Award. Every time someone says to me, how am I doing? They say, I'm living the dream. You have been a recipient of this award. Tell me, take me to where this became such a poignant act of helping the youth and getting involved. And we want to hear your story and where this has led you.
Wow. And first of all, thank you for having me. And I say thank you to Rich as well. It's a beautiful connection. I love it. Great energy. And I appreciate you having me on. It's not something you wake up or grow up saying, I'm going to work with gangsters for a living, you know what I'm saying? Or you don't go to school for that. It's just, it was just the perfect storm that developed it. I was out of hand when I was young. I wasn't a religious kid, and I just was wild. Good athlete, good student, got along with people real well, could fit in, but I had this crazy life, and it was drug and alcohol, and runs through my family line. And took my father when I was in college. And so I was really heading down that road, and a lot of things that come with it. And then I had, this spiritual awakening in my life at 25. I was just trying to get sober and, was just tired. And I was in the entertainment business. I'd gotten into the music business, and it was like, man, the partying, just getting from high school to college, and then from college into that business, it was out of control. And so I was burnt out at the age of 25, and I met a guy, and he changed my life. He studied the Bible with me, and I'd never seen it. We didn't go to church. Parents tried to raise me right. I've made horrible choices. And anyway, it's just, I fall in love easy, and I love hard. And that's what I did. It's like, it was for real for me, man. And I just had to tell the whole world. And so I've only got one speed. And it's all out. If that's either a good thing or a bad thing, I don't have a middle ground. It's either I'm going to save the world or tear some stuff up. And he built me that way. And so I did, man, I found out I could preach. I never knew it. I'd never done it, and something woke up in me when I got in front of the first congregation, and I had found my calling in life, and it was amazing. I got married, had a couple kids, and served in the ministry, leading churches from 25 to 40, and really learned how to preach and learned how to build a ministry and learned so many valuable things. And then the storms came, and all of this is setting me up now. I believe God uses our choices. and he uses whatever we give him. You give him a mess, he'll use it. Give him our best, he'll use that too. And so, he's doing his thing. And I just fell. I mean, I was burnt out again at the age of 40. I was just tired, man. That ministry life, the bubble. I mean, they treated us like rock stars, and it got heavy, and I'd been messing around, I was trying, how close to the line can you get without getting burned? And so I started playing that little game, and then I was in a bad place. And so I resigned. I was like, I got to go. And I walked into a whirlwind, and I just it was a reckless year, man. I mean, I was going down hard because, my fall from grace was public. And, you're not paranoid if everybody really is talking about you. And in Atlanta, it was a story. And I don't have shame now. You know what I'm saying? I'm not living in regret. That's why I can laugh. But, it's my story. But anyway, I fell hard, and I just went out there on my own. And I shook my fist at God, and I told him, leave me alone. And I went and started crashing cars. That's what I do. And so I was at the bottom, man. I was like, I don't even want to be. I don't care if I'm here anymore, to tell you the truth. And then the magic happened, and it just, you have that moment of clarity. And I just made a decision. December 27, 2005, had my last drink. So it's been almost 17 years, which is a big deal in my family line. So, and I'm wide open about that because I wanted to help people if possible. But the problem was, I lost my dream. And so now I'm sober and I'm miserable because I can't preach. I met the love of my life and was remarried. But I'm just like hustling, doing these jobs that I hate. And I'm dying inside because, man, I know what do you do when your dreams all show up and then you squander them? And that's what I did. I was prodigal son. And so I prayed a prayer, and then this will kind of get me back to you. I go around and around when I answer a question now. And so I prayed a prayer. It changed my life. I said, if you ever let me preach the word again, I'll go to the ones nobody wants to preach to. And I named them. I said, the hungry, the thirsty, the naked, the sick, the stranger, and the prisoner. And I meant it. And I don't even know what possessed me to pray it, but I did. And I thought, man, you just let me preach again. I'll go wherever you want me to go. And it took 3 years for that prayer to be answered. And it's not that he waited 3 years. It's like I had to be prepared for 3 years. And then he brought a kid into my life, an MS-13 leader, gang leader. I knew him when he was a kid, fighting for his life, literally a death penalty case. And God just threw me in the deep end. And it's been just this wild ride ever since.
I'm so moved by you. And I want to thank you for your transparency, because there's no room for shame, because we all have it, right? If we're going to be that way. So I hold you up, Kit, and I thank you. I thank you for also being so daring to ask God specifically to move you in a way to help, because there is a lot of help that is needed. And sometimes, like you said, when you get that knock, we're just like, you want to get that door? Because you don't expect it. Because I've been in those shoes. So I applaud you and I thank you. And I want to thank you because there is a lot, as I said, that we have to cover for anybody who is looking at faith and looking at stories. As I said, Kit Cummings is here. He's award-winning author, teacher, consultant, and we are going to be talking about where he has been led. Let's talk about this. So I've understood amongst the awards, amongst you traveling out, you have, as I mentioned, you have visited these prisons and these jails, also with the gangs. There's a special language, there's a special code, and it breaks my heart as I'm doing some research. They're saying the most common age that youth gangs join gangs are from 12 to 15, but it's actually younger. We're talking 5.
Yeah.
So can you tell me, when you finally got the calling, take us on the journey. Where did those steps lead you first? And who were the youths that you were presenting this discussion to, and how were you received when you were talking to them?
Yeah. It was, I started working with this kid, and it was for 2 years. So, I mean, he was my audience for 2 years, following him around when they would ship him around and on this huge case. And he had a green light on him from his own gang. I mean, so there was a cop car in my cul-de-sac because they threatened me. I mean, we're in the middle of this wild. And so then I get invited to what turns out to be the worst, most dangerous prison in the state of Georgia. And Georgia is a lock them down state. But I didn't know any better because I'd been working with this killer anyway. And I knew who he was. That was the secret. I knew who he was when he was 12 before they got him. And so grown up, they told me he was a dangerous killer. I'm like, nah, I know him. And that's how God started me. Maybe that's the way he got me in. It's not like I was I'm ready to go to prison now. Mm-hmm. And so, but man, when I went through the gates of that prison, it's called Hayes. It's notorious in the state of Georgia, more active gang members than any other prison. I was excited. It's because I'd seen miracles with Luis. And so I walked in there ready to make some friends. And that is what I do. Maybe it's the thing I do the best, is I make friends. And it's my favorite thing to do. And I don't know, I love to do it. So I started making friends with some dangerous dudes. And it changed me. And we got a group of them together. And we had a Crip and a Blood and a gangster disciple and a Latin king and a Muslim brother. And we were all in a group, and I was going to the prison every week, twice a week. And I would get this little group, and we started dreaming that maybe we could bring peace to this prison. It was a crazy dream. And so we jumped it off on Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, 2011. And I've been following that man. After Jesus, it's Martin. And that has radically changed. I've been following him for 35 years. And actually know his family. And I'm very, very, I love the Kings. And so anyway, magic happened. And we started just expanding this movement, and peace came to Hayes, and it won Institution of the Year that year. And this is as real as it gets, they saved me. Now, because this is important, I was not going to go to church, Gail. I wasn't going back to preach in the churches. There was too much shame, judgment, gossip, slander. I was like, no. And I was still trying to trust him. And I wasn't ready to go into prisons because I had all these demons that needed to, I say that this shame and this pain and this guilt. And I earned it, you know what I'm saying? And it needed to come out. They became my safe place. Imagine that. God put me in a very safe place, and it was in a maximum security prison in the middle of a gang war with a bunch of gangsters. And they were the ones, because I would talk about my pain and they would cheer. And I would tell them about my worst moves and they would laugh. And we bonded, and I needed them. And so they were there for me. And nobody really understands that. I didn't start this program to go and help some bad guys. They were the ones that God used to give me my voice back and figure out who I really am. I didn't know who I was till I met them, because this is real as it gets behind that wire. And so really this crazy tour, which has taken me to 40 states and 4 continents and prisons in Mexico and Honduras and South Africa and Ukraine and death row, and just this wild journey. It's me. It's like a IOU tour. It's like I owe them, man. And so every time I get to go in a new prison, get in front of a bunch of brothers, I say, thank you. And they're like, for what? And I'm like, man, you saved me. And they go, we don't even know you, dude. And I'm like, no, but I know you. And boom, I'm made again. I'm like a made man. And so it's my favorite place to be, besides with my family. So anyway, I get kind of.
I love that. You know something? What I love is, I don't know if you remember Wyndham Shaw from.
Of course, beautiful brother. Yeah.
That's how I was introduced in the church. And he said, if you want to go to a church where there's no sinners, good luck. That's where I stayed. So I hear you. And plus being relatable, people who are suffering need someone who can say, let me put the shame here. Let me hold you here. And that's what you did, because your story speaks volumes. And as you said, you were traveling all through the country and with the Kings. I remember speaking with Yolanda King, and oh my goodness, that was incredible. Hearing her father gave me goosebumps in the newsroom, and I was like, what? And then, so it was about a few months after, I believe, unfortunately, she had lost her life. She had a heart attack, and we were just talking about her mom, Coretta Scott, when she was in the hospital. So I feel you on all of these levels. So the gift that you gave, the brokenness that you had, was the next step in the journey that you were going to take. So let's talk about this journey. All right. So as I mentioned, you were the recipient of the prestigious Martin Luther King Jr. Living the Dream Award. You truly are living the dream and helping others and giving them hope. whether they are going to make it out of jail after they do their term, or maybe if they're lifers, they still have hope. That's what you've been blessed to do for them. You've also written books. Let's talk about these books because it's important. And we are going to post these up for those who are tuning in and watching. We also have, including the award-winning Peace Behind the Wire. I love that. A nonviolent resolution, which has been endorsed by the King family. That's huge. Yeah. I want to pause right here. Tell me about this book and why it was so important for the King family to put their endorsement on it.
I think that, I mean, the whole thing for me, I was in Philadelphia and I was doing a keynote at a conference, and it was about prison work. I was working at Hayes. I just got into it. And afterwards, the host came up, and it was coming up on MLK Day, the 25th anniversary. That was going to be 2011. And this was in December of 2010. And he challenged everybody, go back to your hometown and do something in honor of Dr. King on his birthday. And I was like, shoot, I love that. And so I'm standing in the back, and all of a sudden, boom, they put Dr. King's face on the screen. And I'm like, I had my idea. It was an idea. I think everybody gets them, but a lot of times people don't grab them. It's like, man, you just got your life-changing idea and you were not paying attention. I was paying attention. And it was, man, we're going to do 40 days of nonviolence at Hayes in honor of Dr. King. We'll jump it off on his birthday. I was so fired up, Gail, that I had my taxi driver, I was in Philly, and I had him take me to the Rocky statue, get out and take my picture in front of Rocky like this, because it was to celebrate my idea. That's how big this idea was. So I get on the plane and I start scribbling down these notes, which become the 7 steps, you know, to this program that brings these rival gangs together. And I got back to the prison, and the warden was not excited about my plan. And so he poured water on it, but he gave me a shot. He said, keep it in that dorm and I don't want to hear about it. But he gave me the right to do it. And I started preaching Dr. King. I was like, I just started teaching them about King and Gandhi and Mandela. And we started drilling down into what a real man is. And miracle happened. So when I wrote the book, Dr. King's all through it. And so I'm sure I had already become cool with Bernice, but we ended up doing a joint book release together at the King Center. So Dr. Bernice, she was releasing one of her books. I was putting this one out, which I think was my 4th. And it was a beautiful thing. We did a book signing thing and really bonded. And I've gotten to see her along the way a little bit, but, and then they said that they'd be happy to sell it in the King Center. And so, yeah, they sell it at the King Center. Yeah, it's beautiful. I've gotten connected to Mr. Gandhi through his granddaughter, Ela, because I spoke at the Gandhi Global Peace Summit in Durban, South Africa. And that meant the world to me. I interviewed her, and she had a message for the prisoners. And I was like, I'm connected to that man. And then Dr. King, of course, I've got to have that connection. And then Mr. Mandela, he changed my life the way he did his time. And I teach a lot about him. And I almost met him, and he was too ill. And I did a video for him, and I was told he watched it to tell him what his teachings were doing for prisoners in America. So those 3 families, I mean, that's the greatest honor of my life, really.
That's amazing. And he's got Dr. King's granddaughter, I happen to see on YouTube, little thing. She is a powerhouse. She got a message. I was like, oh my goodness, you know. Yeah. So I can think both of you on the platform, just her walking out and just, you know, hand in hand. So you never know. Yeah. You know, speak it goes up into God's ears. You never know. Your latest book, The New Convict Code, Bringing Peace to the Streets from Behind the Wire, flips the script on prison reform and aims to shatter the school to prison pipeline. Now, what I want to especially shine on, because we have so much to cover, you recently partnered with the Georgia Department of Juvenile Justice, I understand, to bring peace to over 1,000 incarcerated kids in Georgia detention centers and youth prisons. You know, we have to hear about this.
Yeah.
Please.
I mean, this is the great work, I think, at least to date, the great work of my life. I've been praying and practicing about this one. I think all of my time with the adult prisoners and working with the gangs and learning this thing called the Convict Code. The Convict Code is the way things work inside a prison. There's no handbook. There's nobody to teach you. You learn it. And it's just, it's the rules of the game in a place where a bunch of angry men are having to live in the same place. And it's tough. And so I've taken that code and I've just tweaked it. I respect their code. And then I use that to start introducing principles that make sense if we tweak the code. And that is something I think that maybe hasn't been done before, is talk to them in their language. Let them, anyway, that's a whole other thing. But what I started realizing was there was this young group of inmates that were coming up, the next generation of kids. At first it was the 90 babies, and they came out of the crack epidemic. But then it was these 2000 babies that have grown up in the age of media in their hands. And I'm telling you, Gail, they're unpredictable. They're impulsive. You know, their frontal lobes are not even half developed. And like you're saying, they're getting targeted at 7 and jumped in at even 10, 11, 12. They're little soldiers. And now they're even shooters because they can shoot up a house. And if they get arrested, they'll go to juvenile and do 4 or 5 years instead of the big guy doing a life sentence. And so it's a dangerous trend of what's going on. And we're building more and more prisons and filling them up. And so I just basically had to make a decision. I love working in the adult prison, but I thought, man, one life to live. What's the biggest impact I can make? And it's that school to prison pipeline. We got to keep kids off these streets, in school, out of the gangs, because the gangs are being much more effective than the churches and the schools and the, YMCAs and PTAs. The gangs are effective at getting our kids because we ain't giving them good choices. It's like, so anyway, I served on a House of Representatives study committee on youth gangs, and I was the civilian in the panel of politicians. And the one that was always sitting by me was the commissioner of the Department of Juvenile Justice. So I made friends with him, and we became very cool. And he read a couple books, and we put together this contract. And he's got me down in his toughest facility. I mean, Gail, this is the toughest audience to date. They're 17 to 20-year-old violent felons. Most of them are bloods. And then you got some Crips and GDs in there, and they are just off the chain. And so he's brought me in to do what I told him I believe will change things. And they're all in. I mean, this is the first time I've ever gotten support from my state. I just worm my way in, do it for free. And now they've finally embraced my work. And now it's a matter of me showing that these principles really do work.
You are quite an inspiration. And for those who are joining in and listening, please make yourself comfortable because you're getting quite the education here from my guest, Kit Cummings. He's an award-winning author, teacher, consultant, and he's joining me courtesy of Elite Public Image. And we are talking about how he is connecting the divide with the gangs. And we're talking also about the books that he has also written. And we're going to also see if we can talk about what eyes are on him about a potential project that will be coming to a TV near you. Is that safe to say? We'll just see.
The rumor.
Little something, something. But I want to break down for you. I've got some questions because as with gangs, some people probably don't realize when you say gangs, what does it mean? Who is it affecting? So let's break it down if we can, you and I. What are the 5 reasons you have learned that kids are joining gangs?
Golly. I mean, we're living in a world where the child and the adult, the gap is widening quick. It's always been hard. It's just the perfect storm. You've got, both parents working full time, or we've got single parent households. We've got kids that are raising kids. And especially in our underserved areas, there's many, many needs, and there's a lack of resources. And so these kids that are already living in tough areas, man, first of all, they want to be safe. It's a dangerous world, especially in the tougher communities. And this kid's got to go to school. He's got to live in that neighborhood. So one is, man, I need to be safe. Okay, looking for safe. Many of our kids, white, black, and brown, are coming from some sort of broken family experience, whether it's divorce or maybe a single parent and never want, parent being involved. And so they're in desperate need of family. They need human connection, and especially from older males. And so they're craving that. they also just have basic needs. It's like, you know, I mean, I want cool shoes on my, I mean, they're going to school and you're wearing these dirty old kicks. That is a source of bullying and shame. And if you're not wearing the right clothes, and you've got kids that are, and I want somebody to take care of that. And I got nobody that's helped me do that. You know what I'm saying? Many of them are having to be, you know, one of the coolest kids that I fell in love with this kid. And I promise I'm going to try to do something for him when he gets out. You know, he started selling weed at 10 and he figured it out. He's a smart kid. And he's about to get out after 5 years. I mean, he's a quarter of his young life he spent inside. And it's because, man, he was the man. He had to support the family. So he had to go make some money. And so what are you gonna say to that? I mean, what's he gonna do? He's gonna do what he sees everybody doing. And so, you know, you put all that together. Man, I want to feel safe. I need connection and family. I need some basic necessities, you know what I'm saying? And I want people that aren't gonna leave me because everybody has left them. It's like people that look like me, people that don't look like me, older people have promised them things and never showed up for them. And so look what the gang comes along and does. The gang says, hey, we're your fam. We will never leave you. Nobody will touch you. We'll put shoes on your feet, money in your pocket, groceries in your mother's refrigerator. We will kill for you. We will die for you. We're fam. And the church on the corner is not getting that. They're not hearing that. You see what I'm saying? And so it's not enough to say, just say no to gangs. You know, it's like nobody else is taking care of these kids. So, I mean, I did that. I hope I answered your question.
Absolutely, because it sounds like what you do not have, it sounds like it gives this illusion or this sense of it is my right because I have others who are basically, it's like the addiction, you know, when you have that language, it's like, you know, from when I understand people who are suffering from the fact of if they didn't have it, it's my right to take it because I want it too. I want it too. So I'm going to go this way to get it. So that's what it sounds like. Yeah. What about the age do gangs start recruiting?
The most recent studies I've seen is by the age of 7, they have their eye on a kid and they'll start taking a little extra care of him, putting a few bucks in his pocket, looking out for him a little bit. And what they're doing is they're grooming him because they see talent and that means money they're going to earn. And so this kid, I mean, shoot, Gail, I proved as a guy that looks like me in an area that was not tough, that I was willing to do anything just to belong to whatever. If I was raised in a certain area of this town, you know, that happens to be red. I mean, what are you going to do if your parents wear red? And your neighbors and your brothers and all this kind of stuff. And it's families, you know, that's how many kids are being grown up in this world. Just like some kids are growing up Christian because their parents are Christian and they're being grown up, they're athletes over here. Well, these are gangs. I mean, now it's a generational thing, whole little areas and neighborhoods. And so they get their eye on them, start taking care of them, grooming them, jump them in, put them to work, and then promote them. Wow. And the kids, you know, that's who I'm working with, and it's fascinating, and I love them hard. But I tell you, it's a tough nut to crack, this young generation. You got to be creative. Same old moves don't work.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one last question for the educational piece. Where are gangs most commonly found, Kit?
I mean, traditionally, it's always going to be in the inner city, you know, where there's a lot of government housing, places where you're going to see apartment complexes. And now in the suburbs where there's apartment complexes, you have a lot of transiency. You've got, you know, I mean, just all the things I named. But now, not just like it used to be, you know, stay away from certain parts of town because that's a dangerous part of town. You know, it's low income and there's a lot of crime and violence. Now, you know, the gangs they're spreading out into the suburbs. They're going where the money is. And it's drug sales and weapon sales, you know. And so, you know, where can you find them? Now, they're all over the place. I mean, it's business. And so most of the gun violence is in more of those traditional tough neighborhoods. But now we got kids bringing guns to school. They're recruiting in our schools. And we've got parents that their kids go to a pretty nice school. And I've even heard officers say, we don't have a gang problem at that school. And I'm like, I know for a fact you have a gang problem with that. It's a dirty little secret. It's operating underneath. But now they're starting to recruit a lot heavier in our high schools, and a lot of kids that would have just been athletes now are athletes that are starting to play the game, get their hands over into the streets. And so it's just, we got to do something.
Do you ever get afraid? Do you ever have a fear when you go in? Because with every generation, there's a new form or a new look, if you will, to the gangs. There's one that maybe misses the radar and is not the same, doesn't go by the same ethics and codes of maybe the other gang members. Have you ever encountered them, and how did that ever turn out for you? Did you ever find that they would recognize you and just maybe go against the grain? Maybe they just felt like, they were hard to get along with and helped understand what you were there to actually do was to help them.
Yeah.
Have you ever had that threatened to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Basically, if you mess with their money and then you become a threat. It's like they're not going to let you mess with their money. The cool thing with my deal is I put down the violence. They do, but I just help them learn to put down the violence. And I don't say it, but hey, business goes a lot better where there's no violence. And there's going to be drugs in prison. Why not settle everything down and let them do what they're going to do? But the officers are not, there's a lot to it. But sometimes, there's, especially with these younger ones, they're very unpredictable. In the juvenile prison I'm working with, this was so encouraging because it was just last week. But, one of the little gang leaders, he got sideways with me about something. I still don't know what it was. And he threatened me. It was a bold threat, don't come into my dorm, or blah, blah, blah. And so I was like, all right. And I respect it. I said, I respect. And I didn't, I do my thing up in another part of the building. And I was like, cool, if you don't want me in there, all right, because he's kind of running things. So I talked to the warden and I said, let's just let them do their thing. And I'll work with the other 3 dorms. And when good things start happening for the other 3 dorms, he'll probably figure it out and he'll come back to the table. And that dorm has been off the chain. And the other dorms were making real progress, and they're starting to get some good stuff because we're trying to do incentive reward over punishment. They need hygiene products. I'm providing. They need socks. We're providing, but they got to earn it, right? Put in good work. And so sure enough, last week, that kid comes marching into the room with all his guys, 13 of them. They sit down at the round table. And I'm like, what did you come back for? He said, because we were not represented last week when the commissioner came to talk to us. And I was like, well, you ain't been coming. And he goes, we want to be blah, blah, blah. And so afterwards, I went up to him. I looked him in the eye. I said, me and you good? And he said, yeah, we're good. And it was just like, I operate under this principle, and it's worked everywhere so far. Honduran prisons are no joke. Working with cartel guys in Tijuana, no joke. But I operate under this principle. Everybody knows that it's not right to touch a guy who's coming to help you, especially like a holy man. It's kind of the way they, especially in foreign cultures, maybe the Hispanic gangs are very challenging, but you win them and they're gold. But I know in their culture, you don't touch a holy man. And if you do, there's big trouble for you. And I operate under that principle that if anybody ever tried to hurt me, they would get really, really hurt. And that's what's happened over the years. If somebody ever, some guy got, well, I won't tell you that. Somebody, they deal with their own, and I'm one of them. And so anyway, that's how I operate. And I also operate, I believe this on my heart. If you treat a man with sincere respect, and I know how to do that, and not just when it works. I really, really try to treat everybody with the same respect. And the more less than, let's say the death row inmate who I fall in love with. I've got friends on death row. They get the most respect from me because Jesus said, however you treat the least of these, how you treat me. Well, I figured they're the least of the least of the least. So, MS-13 is known that they don't do programs and they won't work with anybody. Well, they worked with me in Ellsworth, Kansas. And it's because I went to the leader correctly and I said, I know you're a man of power and I respect that. And I do me the honor of your presence in my program. I need your help. I know who you are, and I cannot do this without you. And he brought all of his brothers, and he sat down, and he was chosen to speak at the graduation, and he delivered a powerful message on Mandela. And so that has worked for me. And if it doesn't work one day, then okay. But so far, so good.
This is why I understand the rumor, and I'm not a rumor girl, I'm a fact girl. So I hope you're going to help me clear the fact of this rumor that you are your life is going to be visualized on some said network, perhaps. Am I understanding this correctly? I mean, I don't want to speak out of terms because I want to, you know. I'm so
it's a very strange thing. Yes, I guess what I'm allowed to say, because I asked, what can I say? Because you got
that's why I'm like,
I know you understand the bid. You understand it. I don't. I'm learning it. You know how it is. But anyway, yeah, I'm under contract with a production company in LA for a film project, and it's going to be a dramatic film. Most likely, you know, what they want to do is make a limited series. You know, it'd be a dramatic limited series. And really, I can say, you know, it's about the story of the drunken fallen preacher that comes back to God through a bunch of gangsters and convicts, and the least of these. And it's, you know, it's redemption. I mean, because people love true crime. We're watching a true crime, you know, thing right now about and because everybody wants to see this world, this dark world. But rarely, if ever, is there light and hope and redemption at the end of it. And so, you know, maybe I said too much, but it's going to be about that. I want to give hope to the world, and I don't want to make a religious film, because my story is not religious. You know, it's this crazy God that just chased me around the world. I mean, he's amazing. I want them to know him. So you can pray about it. But I just went under contract, so I'm getting ready to learn a lot about it, I guess.
That's awesome. And I'm so proud of you. And you know something, it's not about religion, it's about a relationship. It's what you have as a relationship and your relationship with others that has now produced what you hear in the stories that we are just so proud of you of. And of course, I'm going to keep you in my prayers. Kit Cummings is award-winning author, teacher, consultant, and you have to make sure that you join me on Gail Scott-Key's Entertainment Now. Check it out on Facebook. And before I let you go, please give a shout out to all the social media platforms to which all of the listeners and viewers can view you and keep in touch. Where can we check you out?
KitCummings.com and powerofpeaceproject.com. Power of Peace Project. That's our work with kids. But yeah, Kit Cummings on Facebook, Kit Cummings 88 on Instagram, and Peace 88 on Twitter. Yeah, but I would love to just meet my name on LinkedIn. But yeah, I mean, reach out. We all need to be together on this one. It's about our kids. And I just want to say thank you so much. You've been very kind. I appreciate that.
It is my honor. And that just means you have to come back on my show, because when we talk about that, you know.
Yes. Amen. That's a deal. I promise.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Kit, thank you for everything that you do. Our prayers are with you. And I cannot wait to hear about how more things are going to be opening up. And to those kids who are listening, please, please, please make sure that you're having these conversations. And this is a wonderful way for you to get in contact. I'm going to post everything up on my Facebook page. Don't let anything keep you from the education of understanding what's going on. And parents, make sure that you are following Kit Cummings. This is a great honor to have him on my show. We are going to be continuing our dialogue with him. This will be one of many continuations of him coming on the show. But I want to make sure that you understand, with everything that's going on, we wish you peace, connection, being unified. Keep your kids close. Thank you.